Imagine dedicating your entire life to raising your children and, in the end, being left alone on the side of a road as if your worth meant nothing. But what if those same parents who were treated with disdain were hiding a secret capable of completely changing the family's destiny? Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Today, you are about to hear a story that will touch your heart. It's the story of two elderly parents who gave everything for their family: love, dedication, sacrifices. But at the moment they needed care the most, they were met with the ingratitude of their own children. Abandoned on a lonely road, they felt invisible, forgotten by those they loved most. But what no one knew was that behind that simplicity, there was a powerful secret, an inheritance of $50 million that could change the destiny of everyone. This is not just a story about material wealth, but about values, the true inheritance that parents leave to their children: love, loyalty, respect, and kindness. Get ready, because what you are about to hear today is not only moving, it's a life lesson that can change the way we see those who gave us everything. James, Robert, and Mary Louise dedicated their entire lives to their family. They had no luxuries, but they built a home full of love, quiet sacrifice, and integrity. Every penny was saved with discipline, every decision made with the children's future in mind. They raised Alexander, Catherine, Frederick, Isabel, and the youngest, Edward, believing that kindness, respect, and unity would be the greatest legacy they could leave behind. But over time, something changed. The children grew up and went their separate ways, and the once lively home became silent. Visits became rare, conversations cold, and the warmth of family connection seemed to fade. What James and Mary didn't know was that there was a hidden reason behind such distance. For decades, they had quietly saved and invested, amassing more than $50 million. They never boasted about it, believing that true value lay in principles, not money. But the children found out. At first, with suspicion, then with certainty. And that revelation began to poison their hearts. Frederick, always ambitious, was the first to voice what many were thinking. "You spent your whole lives saving, but for what? Really?" Mary replied calmly, though with pain in her eyes, "To show that life rewards those with discipline and faith, not to feed greed." The silence that followed was heavy. Alexander looked away. Catherine crossed her arms. Isabel quietly cried. Edward remained silent, too afraid to speak. At that moment, a chasm opened between parents and children. What had once been mere neglect turned into coldness, and then into something far worse. The siblings began meeting in secret, plotting what to do. To some, the parents were guardians of a treasure. To others, they were simply a burden. And so, an unthinkable plan began to take shape. Days later, on what seemed like an ordinary late afternoon, James and Mary were invited on a family outing. To them, it seemed like an opportunity for reunion. But what awaited them was neither affection nor reconciliation. It was the beginning of the greatest trial of their lives. What drives children to abandon their own parents on the side of the road? What turns gratitude into betrayal? James and Mary were about to discover it in the most painful way imaginable. But they were also about to prove that life never forgets what is done with kindness. And I ask you, what really matters? The love of parents or the inheritance they leave behind?
The road was deserted. A cold wind swept across the open fields, carrying with it a silence that seemed to scream. James Robert and Mary Louise didn't understand what was happening. Just a few hours earlier, their children had suggested a family outing, as if it were a moment of togetherness. But now, sitting by the side of the road, the truth became clear. They had been left there on purpose. Alexander, Catherine, Frederick, Isabel, and Edward had planned everything. Driven by greed and the anxious desire to claim their parents' hidden inheritance, they decided to get rid of them. This wasn't mere distance or indifference. It was pure betrayal. Mary held James's hand, seeking strength. "Why would they do this to us?" she asked, her voice trembling. James squeezed her hand firmly. "They think this will make us disappear, that the money will be theirs sooner, but they cannot take from us what we built with our entire lives." The cold intensified, and with it, the burning sensation of abandonment in their hearts. James remembered all the sacrifices they had made for their children. Sleepless nights caring for illnesses, saving for clothes and education, words of encouragement for every achievement. And now it seemed as if it had all been forgotten. They tried to walk. They looked for a house or a passing car that might help them, but the world seemed empty. James began telling stories from his own childhood, memories of the silent sacrifices his parents had made for him. He wanted to show Mary and himself that true love does not depend on immediate recognition. But doubt crept into every thought. What if all their effort, all their kindness, had been in vain? As they walked slowly, feeling the weight of rejection, Mary reflected, "We still have each other. Maybe there's a way to show the children what truly matters." James took a deep breath, holding her hand tighter. Something inside them resisted. A quiet certainty told them that their lives were not over, that kindness, integrity, and true love could still be rewarded even in the face of the cruelest betrayal. And it was there, on the edge of that deserted road, that a journey of resilience began, a moment where suffering would transform into strength, and what seemed like the end would become just the beginning. Even in the moment when everything seemed lost, when abandonment and ingratitude appeared to dominate, life was about to give them an unexpected opportunity. A twist was beginning to emerge, showing that every act of kindness, patience, and integrity always finds its way back. After being left by the roadside, James and Mary sat on the dusty ground, staring at the empty horizon. The silence seemed to scream. The cold wind swept across the fields, yet deep inside, something refused to give in to despair. Between tears and clasped hands, they decided that they would not let this betrayal define their lives. "We still have each other, Mary," James said firmly, trying to transform the pain into strength. "Yes, James," she replied, feeling a quiet determination grow within her chest. "Together we can overcome this." But the empty road offered no hope.
Then, something unexpected happened. An old car parked at a distance slowly approached. From the vehicle stepped an elderly man with a gentle smile who offered shelter and food without asking anything. He did not know James and Mary, but he sensed the pure energy of kindness they carried, something words could not explain. While resting in the man's small house, Samuel, as he introduced himself, James and Mary began sharing their stories. When Samuel realized that they had devoted their entire lives to family and integrity, even in the face of ingratitude, he was inspired to help. He offered them work in his garden, small tasks around the neighborhood, and above all, companionship and emotional support. Every act of kindness from Samuel began to rebuild James and Mary's faith in humanity. Over time, they realized something important. The pain of abandonment could be transformed into opportunity. Each day of work, each smile received from Samuel and the neighbors became a lesson in empathy, resilience, and gratitude. Mary began writing small lists of forgotten goals and dreams, while James tended the garden, turning each plant into a symbol of rebirth. Gradually, small rewards began to appear. People they had helped in the past, neighbors, co-workers, and old friends, came forward to offer unexpected help. Each gesture showed that kindness is never lost. Even in adversity, what is done with a sincere heart returns in surprising ways. James and Mary realized they did not need revenge. True reward lay in living with dignity, patience, and love, showing that life gives back what we sow with integrity. Each difficulty became a lesson, each moment of despair a springboard for greater transformation. And there, in Samuel's small home, among work, shy laughter, and shared stories, they began writing a new chapter. A chapter in which kindness, faith, and perseverance would transform abandonment into opportunity, suffering into strength, and lay the groundwork for the great twist that was about to change their lives and the lives of those who had betrayed them forever. After weeks of rebuilding their lives with the support of Samuel and the neighbors, James and Mary began to sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. Their children were facing the harshness of their own choices. The universe was beginning to balance the scales. Alexander, Catherine, Frederick, Isabel, and Edward, who had once distanced themselves, driven by greed and selfishness, began to feel the weight of consequences. Alexander lost major work contracts, while Catherine faced solitude, watching relationships crumble. Frederick suffered financial losses that threatened his stability, and Isabel felt the disdain of those who had once trusted her. Edward, the youngest, finally realized that one cannot escape emotional and moral responsibilities. Fate seemed to act silently, yet precisely. Each setback was a painful reminder. Actions driven by greed and betrayal bring suffering. But the lesson was not only in the pain, it was in the opportunity to learn, to reflect, and to change. It was as if life, or something greater, was showing them that true wealth lies in kindness, integrity, and love. Meanwhile, James and Mary continued their daily routines, helping neighbors, reorganizing their home, tending the garden, and spreading small acts of kindness. Every gesture, every smile they received seemed to strengthen the certainty that life would reward those who act with sincerity and a pure heart. And then, one day, the children realized something that would change everything. The losses, failures, and isolation forced them to look at themselves honestly. It wasn't just about lost money or missed opportunities. It was about the emptiness that betrayal had left behind. They felt the absence of what truly mattered, the presence, love, and tireless dedication of James and Mary. Alexander, the eldest, finally summoned the courage and called his siblings together. "Look at us. We're paying the price for our choices. It's not just the inheritance we lost, it's everything we should have valued." Catherine, with tears in her eyes, added, "I never understood before, but now I see. Every sacrifice, every act of kindness from our parents, we ignored it, and now we are paying dearly." Frederick, Isabel, and Edward also acknowledged, with deep sorrow, how much they had failed. Every mistake, every decision made out of greed or indifference had been tested by fate. Only after this bitter experience did they begin to feel true remorse. Meanwhile, James and Mary, unaware of the exact state of their children's hearts, continued their lives with faith, patience, and resilience. Little did they know that fate had prepared the exact moment for the lesson to be complete, and that the true turnaround was about to happen. The children would learn to value not only the inheritance, but also the love and principles that James and Mary had cultivated throughout their lives. Now, the story is moving toward a critical point, the moment when pain, remorse, and justice would meet, setting the stage for reconciliation and the ultimate transformation of the family. Having faced the harsh lessons of fate, their grown children finally understood the depth of their mistakes. Every setback, every loss, and every moment of solitude had been a painful, yet necessary lesson. The remorse they felt was not superficial. It was deep, sincere, and transformative. One morning, with heavy hearts and teary eyes, they decided to seek out James and Mary. It wasn't about claiming the inheritance or offering quick apologies. They sought something greater: acknowledgement, forgiveness, and a chance to rebuild the relationship they had destroyed through greed and indifference. James and Mary, for their part, continued their lives with serenity and kindness. The support of Samuel and the neighbors had been a quiet strength that kept them steady, but now something different was in the air, a sense that something important was about to happen, and it was. The encounter. The children went to the place where they had left their parents, and after asking around the community, discovered where James and Mary were staying. Upon arrival, they saw their parents, and a heavy silence filled the room. The tension was palpable, but James took a deep breath and spoke, his voice calm yet firm. "You've been through a lot these past few days. I'm sure of that. Each of you has had time to reflect. We are here." Mary, with a serene smile and discreet tears in her eyes, added, "My children, I hold no grudges, because I love each of you." Ashamed and emotional, the children began to share their experiences, their losses, and the weight of their selfish choices. Each described how life had revealed the value of what they had ignored: the silent dedication, daily sacrifices, and unconditional love of their parents. Alexander, his voice trembling, spoke first. "We were wrong. The pain we felt showed us that we overlooked what truly matters. We now realize that true wealth is not in money, but in the love and values you instilled in us." Catherine, Frederick, Isabel, and Edward nodded, sharing the same genuine remorse. They understood that their parents' abandonment had been a warning, a chance from fate to learn that acts of greed carry consequences, while acts of kindness return, often in unexpected ways. James and Mary listened to every word with patience and compassion. There was no need for anger or punishment. They knew life had already taught the lesson. The true reward was not only in the $50 million inheritance, but in reconciliation, understanding, and the opportunity to witness their children transformed. And then something magical happened. Heartfelt hugs were exchanged, tears of remorse mixed with tears of joy, and for the first time in many years, the family felt the strength of restored love. The painful past was still present, but now it served as a lesson rather than a burden. The final lesson was clear. Kindness, patience, and true love are never forgotten. Fate may test, life may punish, but those who act with integrity and a pure heart reap rewards far beyond money, rewards that transform people and restore relationships. And so, James and Mary, with their children finally aware and repentant, closed a chapter of pain, opening a new era of love, gratitude, and unity, a legacy not only material but eternal, values, principles, and the power of kindness that always returns. The story of James and Mary reminds us that life is a series of choices and tests. Every act of kindness, every silent sacrifice, and every gesture of sincere love leaves marks that are not always immediately visible, but carry eternal value. They were abandoned by their own children, felt the pain of ingratitude and disdain, yet they did not let it define who they were. They remained steadfast, dignified, and united. And at the right moment, life delivered justice in an unexpected way. The kindness they had sown over decades returned multiplied, showing that integrity, patience, and true love are never unnoticed. The children, on the other hand, learned the hard way that greed and indifference have consequences. Fate tested them, and suffering forced them to confront their mistakes. Every loss, every challenge, every hardship was a painful but transformative lesson. They realized that true inheritance is not only in money or material possessions, but in the principles, care, and dedication they received throughout life. What James and Mary built could not be undone by acts of selfishness or ingratitude. Life, quietly and wisely, rewarded them, not just with financial stability, but with the certainty that love, kindness, and integrity have a power beyond the immediate. Generosity, words of encouragement, and every quiet act of care came back in unexpected ways, multiplying into gratitude, reconciliation, and joy. And here is the great lesson. It doesn't matter who ignores, rejects, or underestimates us. What we do with a pure heart returns in some form. Sometimes the reward is visible, like an inheritance, an opportunity, or recognition. Other times it is quiet. A hug, a smile, or a change of heart in those we most need to touch. This story also reminds us that fate, God, or life has mysterious ways of teaching. When someone acts out of greed or indifference, sooner or later they face their own lessons. When someone acts with love, integrity, and patience, they are rewarded in ways that often exceed our imagination. And you, Have you stopped to think about how many opportunities for kindness surround you? How many small actions can transform lives, create genuine connections, and trigger unexpected turns? Never underestimate the power of believing in yourself. Never underestimate the strength of love, patience, and integrity. The kindness you spread today can return multiplied tomorrow. Every act, every word, every gesture has value. And sometimes the universe finds the perfect way to reward what was given from the heart. May the story of James and Mary inspire you to act with love, compassion, and courage. May you realize that even in the face of the greatest disappointments, patience and kindness can turn pain into strength, losses into lessons, and challenges into opportunities for growth. And the question remains, what will be your turning point? Where can you sow kindness today to reap its rewards tomorrow? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now, if this story touched your heart, click on the next video appearing on your screen and discover another inspiring, emotional story full of lessons that can transform your life.